Hi everybody. Today I've got my Applique Basics tutorial, episode number 6, and for today I'm going to show you how to prepare your background and put our start stitching down our 8 heart patches that we prepared. I'm going to eventually make a heart wreath like this. So to start, you're going to need, as you see, I've prepared all the patches. Some of them I've prepared the way you saw me prepare them, and then the rest of them I did with my basting applique method that I mentioned I liked. Okay, so for background, you're going to need a 14-inch square, whatever background you like, and so that you know where to place your hearts, and I'm sorry if not all of this is in the video, you fold it in half and finger press it across, especially in the center and along a little. You need to have these finger pressed marks as your guides. And then you open it up again and you fold it in half the other way, lining up that first fold and the edges. And you do that again. Finger press. So it gives you a guide. This is 14 inches. I always cut my backgrounds bigger than I need them because they're going to shrink a little bit with the hand stitching. And you can always trim away the little bit extra at the end. Okay, now to prepare, you're going to need your mechanical pencil. And what we're going to do is up from the center point in all 4 directions, we're going to make a mark at 1 inch and 1 3/4 inches. So let me do this. You don't want this mark to be visible, though technically you probably will be covering it up, but just in case you don't cover it up, you don't want it to be seen. So which is why I'm not using my regular mechanical pencil. I'm using a yellow chalk version. Okay, now you take your 8 hearts and you arrange them in an order that you like them. I did 2 of each fabric, so I'm gonna move them around so that no 2 fabrics are exactly beside each other. So let's see, start with that one there. When you place them on the background, put the point of the heart at the mark that you made at 1 3/4, and then the indent of the heart place at the fold. So, and then just temporarily we're pinning it in place. This one doesn't look prepared, but if you remember, this is going to be my needle turn one, and I'm going to turn the seam allowance as I stitch. Okay, once you have 4 at the 4 crosses that you folded, then the other 4 should meet up. I'm not putting that one there, I'll put it here. Should what you do is you sort of, so the point is pointing to the center, and then you meet up the hearts with the other 2 hearts that it sits between. This one came unpressed, as you can see, but that's okay. I can still see where the line is when I end up stitching it. If you want to, as a secondary guide, you could fold your background point to point and get your diagonal folds as well, and then line up your point and your indent with those. Because I know this is all going to meet, I'm not feeling the need to do that. But that's also something you could do, or on a different applique background. Now, here's, oh, I did that completely. That one shouldn't be there. I just did tell you not to put 2 beside each other of the same fabric. Another way to make sure you've got them lined up is to, using a ruler, go through the center, and point to point should work. All right, and then this final one. This one is trickier because it has seam allowances sticking out. I think that's about right where it should be. There to there, there to there. Yes, I think so. There. There. Now, what I'm going to do is get some more basting thread. I don't like to applique with pins. If you are comfortable with that, feel free to do it that way. You can also pin it from behind. I don't like the way my thread gets caught in the pins all the time, so I like to baste in advance. So basically, you don't need to baste a lot. You just need to hold it down. So I take 3 or 4 big, really big stitches. Not too close to the edge. Just enough to hold it where I want it to be before I stitch it. And you do all of them. I'm be right back. You don't need to see me do that. I'll be right back. Hello. Okay, I'm back. I've got all my hearts pasted where I want them. And now I'm gonna show you how to stitch it to the background. You will want threads that match your patch and not the background so that the stitching isn't visible. If I used white on these red patches, you would see the stitching. If you have any, if you're new to hand sewing and you have questions about knotting your thread, the thread itself, which like it has a direction. I have some really good tips in my playlist, a quilt tip playlist. Look for the knots and threads one. You'll learn a lot if you're new. All right. I'm going to show you a basic blind stitch and then show you some tips. And then I'm not going to stitch all of it in front of you, but I'll get you started, and then I'll have it all finished next week when we move on to the bow. Okay, so you take your thread and you come up, making sure you can see. You come up in the background just beside the heart. You pull your needle and thread through. And then you also catch a couple of threads, double checking you can see this, I think so. A couple of threads of the folded heart. And then you go back down right beside where you came up in the background. And you move your needle over a 1/16 of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch. You don't want your stitches too big. And you come up in the background again and grab those couple of threads of the heart, and then you pull your thread through. And you don't pull it too tight, but you don't want loose either, because you don't want to be able to see. As I said, you're trying to hide the thread. So I'm going to keep going and you can just watch. Go back in the background. Up. Now, when you get to the point and you're going to be changing directions, the best way to do that is come up on one side of the point and take a stitch. Then go back down and come up at the point. I usually pull through the background first and then come up through the patch, just because of the change of direction. It's not, and the needle doesn't bend like it would need to. And then do the same thing on the other side. Just pass the point, come up and take a third stitch there. And that, because the point is slightly bulkier, just holds everything nicely in place. And then keep going. All right, I'm gonna go off camera and come around, and when I get to the indent, I'm going to show you what to do there. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I stopped a little bit before the indent because there was something up that came up that I thought would be useful to show you. You can see on my heart there's a bit of a in and out. It's pointing out where it shouldn't. And this is what I mean by adjusting as you go. Like, no matter how you prepare your patches, there will probably be something that's out of order. And what you can do when you come to something like that is just with your needle, pull it in slightly, adjust it so that it's better. And nothing has to be perfect, so no worries about that. But you can nudge it as you go, and then you hold it down with your thumb as you go to stitch over. So it corrects the thing that isn't exactly as you want it. There. Oh, and I thought I should do this too. I'll show you what the back looks like so far. You can see my little stitches. The finer your work, the finer your work. Okay, I'm getting close to the indent. So at the indent, or any indent, since you've clipped in, you make sure that the fabric on either side of the indent is folded over as much as needs be. Again, adjusting with your needle. Hold it with your thumb. And what you're going to do is the same as you did with the point. You're going to come to the one side and take a stitch. Then you're going to take a stitch at the indent itself. And then one right as you're just going up the next side. And a reason to do this is because you've clipped so close to the fold, this just gives it an extra strength to not ravel or come undone. Okay. See how I'm doing that with the needle? I'm pulling that down, and then that'll be a nice rounder finish than what was uneven here. All right, I'm not going to continue this for now because but when I'm here again, back to the beginning, I will show you how I knot off. But what I do want to show you before I leave you again is the needle turn one. Where's my needle turn one? Here. What you're going to do is, these are all, I have them all pre-basted or pre-folded. I wanted to point this out to you. This is the one I did with the freezer paper, and if you remember, I didn't give myself quite enough seam allowance, so it kind of came undone. But this one is the starch, and it stayed pretty good, which is just a part of my experimenting. Okay, this is the needle turn one. So with the needle turn one, as you're going to stitch is when you do so you turn it under, and then you come up and you do some stitches, then you turn it under again, and you continue to do that all the way around. And you have your line where it needs to be turned on the patch. So you're just always using your needle to turn it. Pointy toothpick also can work for that. But it's just turn, stitch, turn, stitch, turn, stitch all the way around. And everything else you do the same. All right. Now I will go and finish the blind stitch on this heart, and I'll show you, come back and show you how to knot off. Okay, I'm done. So when you're done, when you've made it around to where you need to stop, or you run out of thread, you knot off on the back, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm taking my last stitch, and I put the needle in the background like you do when you're going to take the next stitch, but you just go straight to the back. And where you're going to put your knot is where the heart is, not where just the background fabric is, or it'll show. And even where you put it in the heart, by the heart, I like to do it as close to the, like in the seam allowance there, so it's not showing through the heart either. So this is how I do it. I take a tiny little stitch right there just to sort of anchor. Then I take a second stitch and I go through. That stitch is only through the background, and if it picks anything up, it's a bit of the seam allowance. And I go through the loop and pull, and I do that again a second time. That's my knots. And then just for extra safety, not necessarily necessary, but I like to just take a tiny stitch between the layers, and then so the tail is actually in between, and then cut it off. There. See that? You can see I had to change threads there. All right, now the fun part, you get to take out your basting and see your pretty heart. There. So off camera, and I'll have it done by next week. I'll come back next week and have all the hearts appliqued down, and we'll move on to the bow. I hope you've learned something from today's how to place your applique by the folding of the background and the blind stitch and knotting off. I hope it was helpful. Let me know in the comments. Like the video if you liked it, and I will see you next week for the next part. Thanks for watching. Bye.